Chelsea completely demolished Barcelona, and the domination started long before the red card. Even at 11 versus 11, Barcelona were already a goal down, and Chelsea had 2 more goals ruled out for offside. From the first whistle, Enzo Maresca's side looked sharper, faster, and tactically superior. Both managers, Enzo Maresca and Hansi Flick, lined up in a 4-2-3-1 shape. But while Barcelona tried to hold their usual high line, Chelsea came into this match with one clear plan: expose that high line, and Chelsea executed it perfectly. Let's break down exactly how they did it. When Barcelona were in possession, their intention was to construct play with patience, using a structured back four of Koundé, Araujo, Cubarsí, and Balde. De Jong and Eric Garcia operated as a deep double pivot, positioning themselves behind Chelsea's first pressing line to offer constant support, receive under pressure, and dictate circulation. Lamine Yamal and Ferran Torres remained extremely wide and high, almost hugging the touchline, in order to stretch Chelsea horizontally, isolate 1 versus 1 matchups, and pin the fullbacks deeper. Lewandowski stayed central, trying to occupy both center-backs and prevent them from stepping aggressively into midfield. Barcelona's entire idea was to lure Chelsea forward, manipulate their pressing shape, and then use short, quick combinations through the pivots to escape pressure. Once they broke Chelsea's midfield too, they could access Yamal or Ferran in space, giving their wingers a chance to go one-on-one against Cucurella or Gusto, a scenario Barcelona believed would tilt the game in their favor. Chelsea, however, refused to allow this structure to exist. Maresca set up an extremely aggressive, man-to-man oriented press. It wasn't random pressing. Every Chelsea player had a direct reference point. Garnacho jumped onto Koundé, blocking his inside channel and forcing play toward Barcelona's left. Enzo marked Eric Garcia tightly, preventing him from receiving cleanly. Pedro Neto pressed Araujo at a diagonal angle to cut off the passing lane into De Jong. Estevão matched up with Cubarsí, forcing the young center-back into rushed touches. Reece James then stepped out of midfield to press De Jong directly, eliminating Barcelona's most reliable outlet under pressure. This pressing scheme intentionally removed Barcelona's central options. With the middle completely blocked, Barcelona were funneled toward Balde, the only free player left. And every time the ball went to Balde, Gusto exploded forward with an aggressive jump press, even abandoning Ferran Torres at times. Behind him, Chelsea's structure squeezed inward, using the touchline as an additional defender to trap Balde and shut off progressive options. This forced Barcelona into predictable low-quality passes or rushed clearances. Cucurella had a special task: limit Yamal's influence at all costs. He stayed tight to him, often stepping into midfield areas just to deny him early touches. Maresca clearly didn't want Yamal receiving the ball freely, facing forward. Chelsea knew how dangerous he becomes when allowed to turn, so they simply never let him turn. Barcelona, realizing they were being suffocated, tried to manipulate Chelsea's man-marking. Lewandowski and Fermin Lopez began dropping deeper, not to receive but to drag their markers out of structure. If Lewandowski could pull Chalobah high, or if Fermin could draw Caicedo or James out of zone, it would open channels for diagonal runs between Chelsea's defenders. One sequence highlighted this adjustment. Balde received on the left, Lewandowski dropped sharply into midfield, pulling Chalobah with him, creating a vertical lane for Fermin Lopez to sprint through. It was exactly the kind of disorganization Barcelona wanted to create. But Sanchez anticipated it early, rushed out, and neutralized the danger. One of several key interventions that stopped Barcelona from turning half chances into something more dangerous. When Barcelona did manage to bypass the first wave of pressure, Chelsea collapsed into a compact 5-4-1. Garnacho dropped into the defensive line to support Cucurella, forming a temporary back five. This created a 2 versus 1 on Yamal almost every time he touched the ball in the final third, shutting down Barcelona's most direct threat. Chelsea's wingers, who pressed so aggressively in the first phase, recovered quickly into the midfield line, ensuring Barcelona never gained clean access between the lines. These constant structural adjustments, man-to-man pressing high, collapsing into a 5-4-1 mid-block, doubling up on Yamal, forcing play wide and suffocating the pivots. Destroyed Barcelona's build-up rhythm. They could never connect their midfield to their attack cleanly, never isolate their wingers in the way they intended, and never stretch Chelsea's block enough to create consistent chances. Chelsea's defensive plan didn't just counter Barcelona's build-up, it dismantled it entirely. When Chelsea were in possession, they looked to build patiently from the back, and their back four regularly transformed into a back three. Gusto pushed high into the wide channel while Estevão drifted into the right half space, giving Chelsea both width and an inside option. At times, the two even interchanged. If Estevão held the width, Gusto moved inside. If Gusto held the width, Estevão occupied the interior lane. With Gusto advancing so aggressively, Balde was forced to stay deeper, limiting his ability to step forward and join Barcelona's first pressing line. Enzo positioned himself in the right inside pocket, combining with Garnacho to progress play down that flank. To disrupt Chelsea's build-up, Hansi Flick set Barcelona up in a 4-4-2 press with strict man-marking responsibilities. Ferran Torres pressed Reece James, Fermín López stayed tight to Caicedo, while Lewandowski and Yamal blocked central progression by covering passes into Enzo and the pivot areas. Barcelona's goal was to trap Chelsea on one side of the pitch and force long, predictable passes. To counter this, Maresca instructed his players to drop deeper and create an artificial back four, with Sanchez stepping high into the defensive line. This adjustment allowed Cucurella and Fofana to spread extremely wide and slightly higher, forcing Barcelona into a dilemma. If Barcelona pushed their wingers or midfielders wide to press Chelsea's fullbacks, they risked losing central control, opening gaps between the lines and allowing Chelsea to break through the middle. If Flick pushed his own fullbacks out to press wide, Barcelona's midfield would remain narrow, leaving huge spaces for Chelsea to exploit, and potentially allowing Chelsea to attack the back line in a 5v2 or 5v3 situation. And if Barcelona chose not to press the wide fullbacks at all, Chelsea suddenly had easy outlets to bypass the first pressing line and progress straight into the wingers or into the final third. Given these risks, Barcelona opted for a more conservative approach, only pressing Chelsea's fullbacks once they received the ball, and even then, doing it selectively. When pressure came, Chelsea's pivots always adjusted their positions to create passing angles. Often Enzo or Gusto dropped deeper to receive directly from the fullback, drawing Barcelona's midfield inside and opening space for quick combinations with James and Caicedo, before Chelsea moved the ball back upfield. In the attacking phase, Chelsea constantly looked to exploit their pace advantage against Barcelona's high line. They frequently attempted direct passes from midfield into the channels for Garnacho, Estevão, or Pedro Neto to run onto. Although Barcelona managed to catch Chelsea offside 6 times with their aggressive line, the repeated threat forced the Blaugrana defense to keep retreating and disrupted their ability to hold compact defensive distances. When Barcelona's Gusto and Reece James combined in tight 3v2 situations, using overlapping runs, underlapping movements, and sharp wall passes to destabilize Barcelona's markers before delivering cutbacks into the box. On the left, Garnacho, Enzo, and Cucurella mirrored the same patterns, rotating positions, overloading the wide channel, and constantly forcing Barcelona's defenders into difficult decisions about whether to track runners or hold the line. Chelsea's controlled structure and possession, combined with their pace and coordinated wide overloads, allowed them to dominate Barcelona's defensive organization throughout the match. In the end, this match was a clear demonstration of just how far Chelsea have come under Enzo Maresca. They didn't just beat Barcelona, they controlled every phase of the game. Out of possession, Chelsea's man-to-man pressing completely dismantled Barcelona's structure, shutting down their build-up and isolating their key attackers. In possession, Chelsea were fluid, brave, and intelligent, constantly rotating between wide overloads, half-space combinations, and direct runs in behind to stretch the high line. Even before the red card, the difference in intensity, organization, and execution was obvious. Chelsea were faster, sharper, and far more coordinated. For Barcelona, the match exposed how vulnerable they remain against aggressive, well-drilled presses and how easily their high line can be manipulated by pace and positional fluidity. For Chelsea, this performance was a statement. The ideas are clicking, the structure is strong, and the players are starting to thrive in Maresca's system. While it's still early in the season, one thing is becoming clearer with every game. This Chelsea team is becoming a serious problem for Europe's biggest clubs. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. More tactical analysis is on the way, so stay tuned for the next one.